All right, what's up, everybody? We're here at the studio of Good Studios, and I'm with Ricky, our videographer. It's his debut on the YouTube channel.
What's up, everyone?
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna walk through the gear that we have. We get a lot of questions about what gear we use, how do we use it. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of walk through what we've got that we usually bring for a majority of our shoots. We obviously will rent a bunch of other gear as needed, depending on what the shots are, but for this is kind of our main kit that we bring to every shoot. So we're gonna start with the big stuff and then end with the camera gear and all that fun stuff. Let's start with, what do we got here? We've got two lights mainly. Walk us through what the two lights are.
Yeah, so first we got the Aputure 600D. This is primarily our key light for most of the productions that we do. It's 600 watts, so really strong, really powerful, great for lighting any sort of scene, and we can modify as much as we need. We actually got the lantern, Aputure Lantern 90 on it. Really small, compact lantern, really great for kind of filling in the space, allowing us to avoid a lot of those like harsh shadows and making things a lot more soft.
And on that note, light travels straight. And so when you have this, it actually spreads the light almost sideways, whereas another modifier would just directly, bring the light forward. So this is awesome to really light up a whole room really bright, better than like, ceiling lights and
Absolutely.
whatnot.
Yeah, as compared to like, say a softbox with a grid, a lot less directional, and it has the ability to kind of have a nice wrap.
Yeah.
So that transition from like the shadow side to the light side is a lot more natural.
All right, then we've got the 200D. What's the difference between a 200D and a 600D?
Yeah, so 200, we don't get as much kind of light from it, but which makes it great for using it as a fill light or even as a hair light. So we have kind of a beauty dish on it, reflector on it to kind of emphasize more of that directional power. So yeah, it makes it really great for adding it just as a hair light. Creates a little bit more depth in the image, so we can kind of create more separation between the talent and say the background.
Love it. All right, what do we got here?
So this is the Tribec small rig tripod. Really great for run and gun types of shoots, which we do a lot of. We're shooting a lot every day, so we want to be able to move the camera around as quickly as possible. So this enables us to do so. Has a great lever system, so we can go up and down fairly quickly and level up the camera that way.
Talk through what this fluid head is, because a lot of people don't realize like this is its own part. It's super expensive. Like people think, okay, it's just a tripod, it goes up and down, that's it. How does this fluid head work?
Absolutely. So this is actually a video tripod or video fluid head. In comparison to say something like a photo head, we get the ability to kind of utilize more of a pan and tilt functionality, which is great for allowing us to have multiple different types of camera movements and things like that. So yeah, this is great if we want to kind of change up from just like a static shot to maybe having something that has a little bit more movement.
Love it. Now, what's this thing right here?
This is one of probably the most important things on a set. This is a C-stand. This allows us to mount things like lights, flags. We can put pretty much anything that you can think of and use this as it is. It's really something that we use on sets day in, day out. It has become like a pivotal part of our process.
Yeah, and then you can put attachments onto it. So you've got something like this, which can then create like a top down. So if you've ever seen like, you can have a very fancy camera top down and you put it on something like this. Something that makes these different is that they are metal. So they're way more secure. You don't have anything sort of flimsy. With bigger camera rigs, they get super heavy. So you need to make sure that the foundation and the base is really strong. So you need materials that can hold these things. So this makes it a lot heavier and thicker in terms of setup, but it can, make sure that you can hold a, cinema camera like ours onto things, as well as like big lights. These are super heavy. So you need to have enough like tension on them. We also have these like sandbags, which is like pretty classic for what you would need as well. This is a 10-pound sandbag, but you also would put it on there so that, keeps everything nice and sturdy as well. So there's a lot of additional things. Every time you buy something like this, there's additional things you gotta get and use. But all this stuff is like gaffing material or gaffing equipment. It's all for the lighting and just kind of random bit bops of things, but they do all add up to creating a really great look and feel on the image that we produce. All right, I'm gonna move these away. Why don't you talk about that little box there? What's that random box?
This little box
Oh, shoot.
is what we call an Apple box. They come in a lot of different sizes. This one's kind of like a medium size. We use these for, as similar to the C-stands, is whatever we need it for, whether we want to prop something up. Makes a great chair. I use it as a chair whenever I'm behind the camera. Yeah, sometimes it's a great step stool, things like that.
Yeah.
Really handy.
It comes in handy when you never, like, you don't know. You're like, you know what? If I only had like 5 extra inches.
Exactly.
So yeah, like sometimes it's just about like standing up a little bit and it gives you a little bit more height so you can see down on things. So,
Yeah.
you know, pretty solid. All right, what's this thing here?
So this is a 3-in-1 reflector. We use this to kind of bounce light in many different ways. Could be onto a talent, onto a product, just to kind of give it that extra fill as needed. It works great in sunlight where we don't necessarily have the ability to bring our like 600D or 200 outside. So we can utilize the sun as our primary key and then use this as a fill. So this one has 3 different types, I believe. The silver, which is great for bouncing off kind of more of a harsher light. This white is great for diffusing light. And then the other side, this gold side, is great for bouncing more of a warm tone.
Literally, it's just reflecting, right? So you're just shaping light. You're taking a source of light like the sun or even just this and just shape it and you'll be able to add a little bit of extra fill light in. So pretty helpful. We also have this. Talk us through what makes this a little bit different than this modifier, because this is pretty like different, but you mentioned about a grid, but maybe you could talk through what this is.
Yeah, kind of as the opposite, like I said before with the lantern. This is the grid on an octagon softbox, which is really great in terms of being more directional with your lighting. So if you wanted to kind of shape your subject in a more particular way with the light, you can angle it down, creating more of that kind of facial structure, kind of depth within the face, or maybe within a product, creating more of that shadow, and just creating more dimension and contrast between with your light.
Yeah, and I think the best way of thinking about it is this, we want to use something like this to spread light on the whole room. Other times, you don't want that to be everywhere, right? So you would use this modifier to really focus the light to go directly into a certain area. Depending on what you're needing, you want to use something like this or that. And that's what's cool about light, is that it just moves forward and then you just modify it. You're literally like just kind of commanding where this energy is going forward and then the intensity of it. And so these are just modifiers, which is pretty cool to see how you could have the same light on the same settings, but just putting these modifiers completely changes the look and feel of a space, which is really cool. All right, what the heck is this box here? It's called the Pelican. What's in the Pelican?
Yeah, so inside the Pelican, we store 2 lights. The 200D actually goes in there as well as the 150C. So this is a color light. We're able to kind of change it throughout the entire spectrum. So you can get your red, blues, yellows, anything you really want. So really handy when we kind of want to create more of a unique look in terms of the lighting. But typically we can use it as another kind of bicolor light where, you know, if we wanted another fill or another hair light, we can do that as well.
Yeah, and so this is thinking about intensity of light. You've got the 600, the 200, 150, so it's gonna be less strong than either of these. But what's cool about this is usually we use it more on the warm side. So if you were like, hey, we want that golden hour, we can get golden hour 24/7 because of a light like this. We can actually have more yellow light. So that's what's really great, is that, you know, it's gray here in Seattle, but that doesn't matter. We can always kind of shoot this light in through a window and you have this beautiful golden hour, and it's actually like 8 in the morning or 12 in the afternoon. It doesn't really matter. We don't have to wait for sunset. So this is really cool for us to be able to do that. This also allows us to travel with expensive gear and protect us. So that's also a helpful thing. And then there's this other box or, you know, case, and that's for the 600 itself. So yeah, okay. Now let's get to, what else do we've got a lot of like random stuff in here, which we don't need to go through, but there is, just for you to note, everybody, there's just like random things, like, I don't know how to explain all of this stuff, like rigging stuff, like
so in this box, this is primarily just grip and rigging. So anything that we need, whether we want to kind of change up how we use the lights, the C-stands, or just a random matte box in there as well. So anything that requires rigging the camera or the lights in a particular way, probably be in that box.
Yeah, and then there's just cords and additional like lenses and stuff. Let's actually show this here, because this is the gimbal. So maybe explain what this is.
Yeah,
Tell us
so the
what this
gimbal is one form of stabilizing the camera and stabilizing the shots. Basically what it uses like motors to kind of balance out the camera and have it in motion. So what's great about this is that it allows us to create more of those quote unquote cinematic shots where it's a little bit more fluid, a little bit more graceful in a way. So in terms of, shooting for our clients, we want to make sure that, some of our footage doesn't look kind of handheld or shaky. We want to create more of that beauty moment. So it allows us to do that.
Yeah, and this is really awesome, especially when we're outside and we're walking, you're gonna get a ton of natural just jitters. And so this really smoothens out things. So if you really wanted to have some extended clips or you're walking through a scene, this is like the perfect thing to kind of rig a camera onto, which kind of brings us to towards the end. We've got our camera bag. We've got a lot of things in the camera bag. Maybe you can just walk us through some of the core things that we have. Let's start with the actual camera itself. Walk us through, kind of like what we usually are shooting on here, and yeah, what's all this metal stuff going on?
Yeah, so right here we got the Sony FX3. It is pretty much a prosumer cinema camera.
Yep.
So really accessible. Allows us to get that cinema style images that we love to see across all our clients. We have the 24-70 Sigma 2.8 art lens on it, so it gives us that range from the wide all the way down to some telephoto. So we can kind of be a little bit more flexible on set and getting a lot of different shots and angles fairly quickly without having to kind of swap out lenses, which is great. We have the small rig cage on it, which allows us to mount different accessories on it, like a monitor, a handle, mics, you name it. It can pretty much go on there.
Yeah, and one thing to note is there's a ton of camera gear out there, but why we pick this lens specifically is that we are usually trying to get a lot done in one day, in one shoot, and you need to be able to get a variety of shots. And if you had to change out your lens every single time, it would just create an additional thing to think about of how we're gonna shoot things, when we're gonna shoot it, and it creates a lot of like just slowness. So having a zoom lens like this where we can get a very close-up shot and a very wide shot and everything else in between allows us to get amazing variety of shots without having to take off the lens. Now, there's plenty of times where we want to have a more focused macro lens, which would be close up, or a wider lens or whatever. But that's usually detailed like in our pre-pro of like what we know. But like 80-90% of the time, this is what we're using because it allows us to get the most and stay, efficient with our production. And then of course, it just keeps it on to the FX3, which is just a solid camera that, you can shoot horizontal. So for YouTube connected TV, TV ads, you can shoot here, but then you can also go vertical and shoot really great meta ads as well. So this just allows us to, in one setup, basically shoot everything. And of course, there'll be times where we flex up or flex down, but that's really good.
Yeah.
All right, what else is in here? We've got like monitor. What are these things? We've got handles.
Got a couple of handles. Again, kind of what's great about the FX3 is its form factor. It's super small, super nimble, which allows us to mount things like handles, which we can kind of use to kind of go high, low, as opposed to something like a cinema camera where we'll have kind of like this larger rig, a little bit more difficult to maneuver. So it's great in terms of flexibility in that way. That's why we have those handles.
All right, we've got the DJI mics.
Yeah, so the mics that we use are the DJI Mic 2s. What's great about these is that they record in 32-bit float. So while we're on set, we don't have to worry about any of the audio clipping, whether if one of our talents goes a little louder or if our talent's a little more quieter, we don't have to worry about that in post. So that we'll always get clear, crystal audio no matter what we do.
Love it. And then the last thing, let's see, these arms. Talk about these magic arms. I just got these, I don't know, probably in November. By far some of my favorite gear using.
Absolutely. The great thing about Magic Arms is they are super flexible in terms of, adjusting to whatever you need.
Yeah.
So whether it's you need a very creative angle or maybe you just need to mount something in a certain way. These Magic Arms are super handy. They can mount literally on any side of the camera rig. You can even mount them on our tripod here. So yeah, super handy.
Yeah, and like you can get some crazy shots where you can clip it onto anything and it can be like top down, it can be just like anywhere. Like it makes shooting with the camera flexible, like in things that you think you couldn't do, or like, oh, maybe I would have to like only like a small like phone could like be up in there, right? Like on the ceiling. But all of a sudden now you with this like small thing, it just makes you think about like what other shots we can get. And so that's what I love about it. Obviously there's other things, you could rig monitors to it and other equipment that you need, but just in general, it also opens up the capacity of like what types of shots you can get, which makes like it just incredible. Like just such unique shots. And our goal on production is not only to get the shots that we need, but also to find unique angles that no other creator is going to go out and do, because it's just going to be hard to do, right? And so we want to continue to kind of push our boundaries of not to have gear just to have it, but to have gear that's going to actually help us find unique ways to communicate products in advertisement to sell. And so having gear like this allows us to find interesting new ways to show off a product that's just never been done before for a brand, and that's why I love it the most. But even on a personal, like for my own content, I've just been loving using this. So it's also like 30 bucks.
Yeah,
it's like
super cheap.
Probably some of the best like bang for your buck. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's it. That's all we've got. I mean, we've got a lot of other smaller things here that we usually have, lots of cords, you know, extension cords, things like that. But that's our setup. Wanted to walk you through that. Let us know if you have any other questions on the gear that we use. We usually are giving out like suggestions of gear for brands. Lots of people hit me up asking like what they would want for their own setup, if they were at home or whatever. So if you have any questions about how you can create content for your brand, just let us know and we'll hook you up with all the details. But this is what we use. Sign off. We say subscribe. Like, come on, let's go.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you guys on the next one.
Peace. All right, that's it.